Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Caduta, and welcome to another podcast of C&E. So we've got almost the full crew today. Let's introduce ourselves. I'm David Caduta.
I'm Skylar Barty.
I'm Aaron Lanuza.
And so we were going to do something different today. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about esports. Esports is the biggest, or one of the biggest gaming things for the past, I'd say 10 or 15 years.
I'd say it's more up and coming in recent years, yeah. But yeah, it's been around for a long time.
Right, I'm going to get into that shortly. So I've got to say for this, first and foremost, Skylar, you are the leading expert here.
Yeah.
Absolutely on this one.
Yeah.
I had to do my homework, so.
Yeah, I've been watching any form of esports since about like 2004. There was a show on G4 TV called Arena. Yeah, and so it was kind of like a laid back show. It kind of like put esports. Esports were kind of just up and coming at this point. There's a couple tournaments here or there. StarCraft was really big in Korea at the time. And here in America, we had Arena, which did like a bunch of games, and it was kind of just laid back. Wasn't really too professional. So it was just kind of nice.
Which were like first person, and then they also had the thinking kind of games, right?
Well, a lot of it
strategy.
Was like Unreal Tournament, which was a first to third person game. They had a lot of fighters. They had Soul Calibur 2. They had some, I think, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. So there was a lot of stuff that was there, you know.
Yeah. So before we get into this, let's just describe and define exactly what an esport is.
Right.
So what is it? We all know electronics and sports, but so it's essentially online gaming.
It's competitive online gaming, as we would see with like any sports. In the old days, it was just anyone who competed for money in a video game. In today, there's actually like leagues and tournaments, and anyone who competed in that is an esport athlete.
So the leagues and the tournaments.
Yeah. So there's actual like professional players now. There's teams. You know, there's a lot of big teams from America. Probably one of the biggest is Team Solo Mid and Evil Geniuses, two of the biggest teams that came from America.
Would those be for any game, or are they going around to
EG
different
is kind of
games?
just any game. They've done StarCraft. They've done Dota 2. They're not really in League of Legends. Team Solo Mid was a old Dota team that transitioned to League of Legends. So now they're an exclusively League of Legends team.
So they're just really good at that type of game.
Yes, like they only have one team. So like EG has like a couple teams that's all under the banner of Evil Geniuses.
Gotcha.
Like StarCraft, Dota, they have EG teams, and then TSM is just a team that plays a game. Similarly to how the Cardinals play in Arizona. There's only one Arizona Cardinals. So.
Yeah. So this really took off, like we've talked about briefly, but it's basically one of those things where now it's a competitive sport, and millions of dollars are being basically given out for these games, these video games, essentially.
Yeah.
Almost $1 billion since 2010.
It was $1 billion industry in Korea.
Yeah,
So.
I mean that's really where it started, was South Korea and Europe, and then in the 1990s we had the CPL and all these PC games.
God, CPL.
Yeah, so flashback.
Yeah, right.
So it's one of those things, and as it's grown, it's basically one of those things where it's now Dota. Am I pronouncing
Dota.
that right? Dota, thank you.
Dota, yeah.
Dota is one of the biggest games where they're basically.
It's the highest. So the Dota International is the highest grossing tournament.
Okay.
So it has the biggest prize pool of any tournament, and it's all funded. So it's all publicly funded. So anyone donates into it through the game, and they've consistently reached a $10 million prize pool almost every year.
That's amazing.
It's insane.
Think about it.
And where are these competitions? Is it all around the world?
International last year was held in Seoul, or not in Seoul. It was held in Seattle, here in America. League of Legends, which is arguably right now the biggest esports in the world, it dwarfs Dota, Hearthstone, and StarCraft and Counter-Strike to a very big degree. They're playing their mid-season invitational right now in Shanghai, China. And they've played all over the world. Seoul, South Korea. They've had their 2013 here in LA. So they pretty much do anywhere.
So actually, just a few weeks ago, I know we keep bringing this up, but
Here is the dorm.
Here is the dorm, And so ASU just crushed UT Arlington.
Yeah.
And it was just, I mean, I watched this in the finals, and it was just one of those things where
Those players have a future in the sport.
well,
you know.
I thought the cool thing was that the tuition for whether it was 1 year or
Yep.
even the whole tuition gets paid for, and
Yeah.
that's like 50 or 60 grand.
They get a lot of money from this. It's
Yeah.
Right
real.
off the
Yeah.
books.
In MSI right now, the winning team is going to be winning $250,000. That's $50,000 a person for a 2-week pay.
You know, I think it's
Amazing.
it's like getting to the point where there's so much money involved. People can't just avoid it anymore. It's
And that's not
becoming
even counting
big.
like endorsements. Like these teams are sponsored. CLG right now, I believe, is sponsored by like SteelSeries, which is a gaming company. Like there's a bunch of PC parts companies that endorse these people. Red Bull Battlegrounds is actually a tournament that happens, and Red Bull sponsors many teams around the country, and they've been one of the few companies that has really taken to esports and really pushed them to be a thing. And if you ever watch Red Bull Battlegrounds, there's some really good tournaments with some up and coming players.
You know, it's kind of funny because it's probably the only sport where energy drinks are almost necessary to use during the sport itself.
In Samsung Studios right now in Seoul, it's all sponsored by the Hot 6 energy drink, and it's the biggest sponsor out there. It's
Well,
hilarious.
I mean, you know, speaking of that, I mean, that's really classified as a sport now.
Yes.
I mean, we can classify this as a sport.
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
anything else.
In America, it's actually, for visa purposes, esports are considered sports. You know, foreign athletes are able to come here on sportsman visas. Like,
That's just amazing.
you know,
You can go on a plane now, and now they have the athletic visa. That's
Yeah.
different. It's
Well,
different
I mean,
than
to think
before.
that ESPN has picked this up.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
It's on their website. There's an entire section for esports.
well, it's just like poker.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, poker, I'm a poker player, but I mean, it's like the World Series of Poker is, over the last 10 years, 15 years, has been one of those things where it's
It's
now
on.
a sport.
Yeah.
You know, they say, well, it's not a sport. Yeah.
Well,
Some people see it, I
I
mean-
don't believe that poker is classified as a sport.
Well-
I think it's currently classified as a competitive gaming, similarly to
and
like
that's
chess.
the thing, too. I mean, here's the thing. When you sit, and it just astonishes me, when you sit at a table for 16 hours on
Oh, yeah.
and, you know, one of the
There's a lot of
biggest-
physical endurance.
Well, that's it, too. I mean, they get breaks every 2 hours because that's what
Yeah.
each level is. But, you know, the thing about the World Series of Poker, just to shy off it for a minute, is one of the reasons why, among others, that it's the hardest tournament to win in the world, and you have 7,000 people putting $10,000 up of their own money, is they don't want to get rich. I mean, you can go play the lottery to do that. It's a matter of they're going to become a world champion, and it's like, okay.
And then you're consistently going.
Well, that's it too, but it's, you know, the thing is, you look at, you have to change your style in playing. It's just like competitive sports. It's, you know, you can be aggressive, you can be conservative, but it's also the time and everything else. And, you know, the WSOP is the big thing, but there are other poker tournaments. I mean, you've got poker, the World Poker Tour and other things, and so, you know, but getting back to esports.
Well, like actually transitioning from that into esports, it's kind of funny because there's a reason why esports and poker are both getting big right now. And I think the biggest thing, and I talked about this in an article that I wrote last week on Cougar News, is that it's accessible. Anyone can play these. You know?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And so there used to be a guy, and he's actually one of the biggest proponents. His name is Sean Plott, or he goes by Day 9. He's one of the biggest proponents of esports, working with ESPN, Red Bull, and all this stuff. And he used to have a show called the Day 9 Daily, which was all about becoming a better gamer, was the quote. And he talked about one of the coolest things he loved about esports and video games is that he I can't think of the name right now. He casted StarCraft was his game. And
Which was one of the first
it was the
ultimate.
first true esport. It was StarCraft Brood
Yeah.
War. And he was a player of it. He played for years and then became a caster, announcer for it. And then, his quote was that he likes that you can watch a game, see a really sick build that these guys are doing, and then try it out.
Yeah.
You can see what they're doing and try to emulate your play. And it's cool that you can actually like copy these things, try to imitate the players you like, and
with actual fundamental like properties that are
and
you
because
can
of
get.
the fact that you like the games themselves, like Right now, a game that's going to be up and coming for esports is Overwatch that comes out in a couple weeks.
As a matter of fact, we were just talking about this. Is it still in beta?
It just got out of open beta on Monday. And so, but there's already leagues. Like in beta, there have been leagues with actual prize money. Only a couple $1,000s, but people are winning money off this, and it's not even out yet.
Yeah,
and you know,
it's astounding.
And it's just cool. But
the potential's
even
there.
Then,
Absolutely.
what's cool is that unlike football, basketball, baseball, all of these things, you have to go find a league. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to go leave your house, find a place in your community that plays it, and then you have to find guys who want to join you, yada yada yada. With esports, you click a button, it finds it for you, so you're never away from trying out the stuff you want to do.
They have something called ULOL now, where
University Law, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You have students who are trying to join these groups of people who play together.
No, collegiate esports leagues are, like he was talking with Heroes of the Dorm, they're humongous. They're all across the country, at least here in America. They're even in Korea. There's an entire college dedicated to StarCraft. Insanity.
Yeah, I mean, that's
What to play, the ins and outs, and
well, and then the other getting back to that about finding a league, they also have the skill level.
Yeah.
So it's not like, let's say I'm a beginner and you're an expert,
Yeah.
and we find a league. I'm not going to go into your expert league and get crushed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I mean, I'll be able to work my way up, get better, and then go to your league. So,
What's cool is that that's actually already built into League of Legends. So there's a tier system. So it starts at the very bottom at bronze. StarCraft 2 was the first one to do this, but it goes bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, and then challenger. And so the actual professionals get all the way to challenger. And once you're in challenger, you're actually qualified to compete at a competitive level in League of Legends if you have a 5v5 team. And then, depending on the season, how well you do in that season, you are able to be promoted to the LCS, the League Championship Series. Only 8 teams in the entire country get put in there. And we had 2 brand new teams go into the LCS for this summer.
are you talking about the U.S.?
Yeah, the U.S. So in League of Legends, there's a bunch of leagues. So a bunch of leagues around the world. Right now at MSI, only 6 leagues are being represented. The North American and the European LCSs, China's LCK, China's LPL, Korea's LCK, Taiwan's LMS, and then the Turkey Premier League. So all 6 of those have a team right now. Their leading team from their spring split playing in this tournament. And for the first time ever, and I actually, if you guys watch our news briefs for Cougar News, we'll have the story in there. For the first time ever in a major Riot tournament, or international Riot tournament, North America has placed in the playoffs for once, and in second place nonetheless.
Yeah, it seemed. I was looking at the website. It seemed like North America keeps getting made fun of. Honestly.
Yeah, because honestly, we've never really made the playoffs. Like, we're made fun of in esports quality because, like, the best North American player in StarCraft is a Canadian. You know, not even American.
Close.
The last good American player stopped playing StarCraft a couple years ago, and he stopped being good years before that. One of my favorite players, though.
What's his name? I know they're always entertaining.
Yeah, and so you have America who's just not been good at esports outside of a couple first-person shooters. And then now we get CLG, we get TSM. EG won the Dota International last year, which was humongous. Like, that was the first time I've really ever seen an American team do that good in an international tournament and win. And that's the cool part, that it's now starting to equalize. We're not being beaten by other countries here in America, even though these games come from North America, you know?
Yeah.
So we're finally getting back into the game.
I think it's
and the
because-
competition is there.
I think it's because, unlike Korea and China, who have really embraced esports, we never did really. You know, we are always kind of seeing video games as kind of a
Luxury.
Not really a luxury, but as a counterculture thing, or like a secondary culture.
Yeah.
And so we didn't really have coaches. We don't really have psychological staff. Now TSM has a psychologist on staff. They have 3 different coaches. Like, they have a lot of resources put into this team.
The thing too, if you, I mean, any sport, I mean, whether it's golf, and I mean, a lot of the individual sports like golf and tennis, they have sports psychologists, they have individual coaches for nutrition and strength and everything else.
All of those.
Yeah.
And so, if it's working for sports, why not have it work for electronic sports?
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
And it's just now becoming prevalent in the last 2
I mean,
years
think about
for
it.
that.
If a team or a player gets, if a player comes back and defeats them, for example, and they were up big in the game, that can really crush the players' morale.
That's what happened this year in North America. We had Immortals went 17-1 for the season. All right, or no, sorry. I think 17-0 almost, or 17-1, 17-0. They were undefeated this season. All right. And then TSM, who's 6th in the league, barely makes it into the playoff.
And crushes everybody, I'm sure.
Annihilates Immortals. Goes 3-0 in a best of 5 and just hands it to them. They end up losing to CLG in the finals, but like it's just so like that's demoralizing sometimes,
and, And that's the thing. How does because I've seen it with sports players. They have a horrible play or whatever else, and it crushes them, and they can never recover. And some of these players, they're just out of their game.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's the same thing with esports.
Yeah.
And, it's a whole strategy thing.
I think it's similar in the StarCraft. You were talking about the best player. Why stop playing? He had to have had a reason.
Well, like Idra, his name was Idra, and he was one of the top American players in Brood War, and then he was maybe like in the top 3 in North America for StarCraft 2, and his play just started getting worse and worse, and he started just not being as good of a player. So he decided, I'm just gonna become a caster. I'm just gonna stop playing competitively. I believe now he's playing like Heroes of the Storm competitively. But I don't really he's just kind of fell off the face of the earth for the most part.
Could be like morale, losing
Well,
morale.
that's the thing. I mean, I can speak to this kind of in poker because, I used to play poker, not professionally, I tried.
Competitively.
But, exactly. But, for the certain portion, we could, if we were in the top 30 in points, we could make what was known as the playoffs.
Right.
And so I was like, I want to say 5th or 6th. I was doing really well. And then I went on vacation. When I came back, it was only like a week. But I couldn't win. I couldn't do anything. Subsequently, I missed the playoffs.
Right.
And I was crushed.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I need to completely just take a break for like 6 months and not talk about poker, not play poker, not do anything about poker. And eventually I went back because I love the game so much. And I was like, you know what? Okay, now I'm over it. But then I laugh about it. But it's like, I can completely relate because I have a buddy who, he plays 5th out of 1,000 people.
Right.
And it's like, it was what I was 10 years ago. And it was like, wow. And that's the other thing, too, speaking of esports, is it doesn't matter what age you can be. You could be 55.
Yes and no, actually, because it's kind of
as far as
competing,
but as far as timing and coordination.
No, actually, it actually appears that people who end up getting later, there's very few players who can make it past about 27.
Really? So there's a window then.
Yeah, there's very much a window, and so it's really weird because players hit their prime anywhere from about 18 to 24. Okay, it's kind of like the prime years.
Athletics.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because right now there's a guy named Bomber in Korea. He is a legend in StarCraft. The guy has been playing forever. He's one of the best players, consistently wins tournaments, has one of the biggest names, biggest endorsements, is a coach right now for one of the biggest teams. I don't remember if it's SKT or KT or Ulster, but one of the 2 biggest teams, he's won one of them. And
sounds like a superstar.
He is still doing amazing, and he's in his 30s. And that's highly rare for a StarCraft player.
Yeah,
highly rare.
Fine wine. As you get older, you get more experience and so on and so forth.
But the
sounds
thing
like
is
consistency.
After playing a while, your nerves actually dull a bit. And that's where
makes sense.
You can get into the game later in life so long as your nerves are still fine, but you start to fry out a little bit.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
And even after, because Korea has a 2-year mandatory military service.
Okay.
And usually players come back to the game, but sometimes their nerves are just shot because of the military service. They never return to the game.
Let's talk about something else that's very interesting about esports, and that's ethics.
Yes.
We have, just like regular sports, we've had a couple of incidents over the last...
One very big one.
Yeah, big one. Basically, now that we have a ethics background, so to speak, we have these players taking PEDs or performing enhancing drugs, and you say, well, why? How could this be helpful? We have these players taking Ritalin. We have them taking all these different medications.
I think it's just the same for educational purposes. Why students do it?
true, but at the same time, if, Adderall, so, I mean, these aren't really medications to be messing around with. However, Skylar, speak to us about the big incident you were telling us about.
Let me pull up the player's name. Basically, very recently, it turned out that there was a player who was he was rigging matches. He was basically profiting off of matches, trying to find. I'm trying to find the guy's name.
I mean, it's kind of equating to everybody out there. It's kind of like what Pete Rose did. When he was a manager of the Reds, and he was betting on his own team to win or lose. That's essentially what it's like. That's a no-no in baseball. I mean,
no, yeah, you can't do that. No way.
He's still not in the Hall of Fame, and is the all-time hit leader. So, but getting back to what Skylar was saying, so there is a bunch of ethics here that you have to abide by, because let's face it, it is a game, and it is competition, and it is one of those things where if you don't perform admirably, they will find out, and they will, whether it's docking you pay, whether it's suspending you, or probably banning you for life.
And nowadays they actually have salaries for these people. Not on top of the prizes they have this.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, that's a good point there, because you have people that, they're taking this money on the grounds that basically we're all honest.
Yeah. So recently, what it was two players. Baboyang and Life, who are major StarCraft players. So before there was match fixing scandals with like kind of minor players to kind of make some money, but Life is a like a champion. Like he has consistently won high level tournaments and is a very well known player. And he match fixed, in order to make the money, because sometimes these guys get greedy. They get whatever, and it's just the same as you get in normal sports,
Yeah.
Like you had the hit list from New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like anything else. It's like the base of the Mitchell list years ago with steroids and everything else.
Yeah.
And so, it's a shame that, there are people out there that have to try and do this, but it's always going to be out there.
And I'll say this to people who think esports are easy, that like, oh, it's just video games, I can pick up and play. I want you to see professional matches. I want you to, like, MSI is the rest of this week. They'll do restreams at 11 a.m. Like, watch how they play. Watch the amount of focus. If you want to see how hard esports can be, watch Counter-Strike Go or StarCraft. The amount of, like...
energy.
The amount of energy you have to have, the amount of focus... The amount of
it's a fast-paced game. Yeah,
they're fast-paced. You have to make incredibly quick decision-making and have incredibly long-term decision-making too.
Well, and that's why these medications like Adderall and Ritalin, they are there to help these people focus for long periods of time. Because let's face it, today's the average person doesn't have that long attention span.
No.
So it's one of those things.
I think the funny thing is when you're playing these games, you don't just have like one screw up that causes a sequence of. It's actually it's like these micro opportunities for you to screw up, and it really does build. It is a domino effect.
Some of the best players in StarCraft, because this is actually one of the primest examples of like when you can lose at this, is that you'll have two players who are equally as talented, maybe the top player in each race. All right. And yet, one player just clearly wins by the end, and it's not even because the other player made a major mistake. It was just maybe he missed a timing. Maybe he positioned some of his troops wrong. Maybe it was just he didn't catch something fast enough and reacted a little, just a microsecond too slow. These tiny mistakes turn into a snowball, and then turns into an avalanche, and then just crush you. Yeah. And it's so subtle. And it's so awesome to watch, because you watch two people at such a caliber as these guys are, and yet they still make mistakes.
And you guys were talking about how you can like find these kinds of these ways that they have their armor up, and they have this particular armor that you can kind of manipulate and do the same. But
you're talking about the Immortals, right?
Yeah, for Immortals. Yeah. But you can do that. You can also do that by watching their gameplay and follow along. Just continuously see how they do it and do it even better.
Let's go transition one more time, and let's talk about women in esports. Now,
there's very little.
I was reading about this. In the last couple of years, it's grown. But it's not. When we say grown, yes, it's grown in popularity, but it's not grown with competitive. They're
Yes.
not actually behind a screen or in front of
Right.
a screen, you know, and playing.
Both. I mean,
yeah,
technically.
but,
Both technically.
well, in all honesty, seriously,
Yeah.
as far as broadcasting and
Yeah.
playing, and so I think that's one of the big things. We touched upon the media as far as how big it's gotten in all
Yeah.
these countries.
I mean, in StarCraft, like just in casters alone, so there's only 2 major female casters in League of Legends, and there's maybe like 12, 15 guys who are casting these games.
Yeah.
But yet 2 women.
Yeah.
And
No, I was reading about these couple of, now mind you, when we talk about esports, let's make one thing clear. I mean, we're talking about Warcraft and League of Legends and Heroes of the Dorms, but there are also other games out there. Like Call of Duty is a perfect example.
Yeah.
This has actually gotten a league where you can play professional money.
yeah,
Madden.
MLG. Yeah.
And it's just one
Madden's
of those things.
so the
Madden is not so much now,
Yeah.
but it used to be. You
Yeah,
used
that
to
bigger
enter
following.
a tournament where you can win $100,000.
Yeah, there's
You
always
know?
tournaments for it, but it's not. I wouldn't actually call Madden a true esport because there's not
Right,
like
yeah.
a competitive league.
Yeah,
There is a bunch of amateurs who compete
Right,
in it,
absolutely.
but
That-
it's
that
there's
being
no like
said,
professional
anybody
Madden
can,
players that I know of at
No,
least.
you're right. I mean, there isn't. Yeah, I completely understand what you mean because
Yeah.
it's anybody. Any
Yeah.
one of us could go and enter the tournament and win.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, but you have still that skill level is got to be there. And
Yes.
That's the finite thing of it.
Yeah. But I'll say this. So right now, the 4 biggest esports, League of Legends is the king. It consistently gets the highest ratings. It consistently has the most viewers. It puts out more money per tournament per year. And it's humongous. It's around the world. The 2013, I don't know 2014 and last year's world, the Worlds in 2013, 32 million people watched that World Championship.
That's astounding.
That is bigger than some World Series.
I mean,
That's
32
insane.
million people. It's just.
That is like 1970 Super Bowl
It really
numbers.
is.
1970 to like 1990
Well,
Super Bowl
and
numbers.
here's the thing. This is a good transition, and I know we're running out of time, but the internet live streaming.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the fact is that, before, the 32 million people may not have been able to see it. Now we can go on a computer and watch all of these things.
Yeah.
And television.
Streaming
internet,
sites like Twitch have really
Yeah,
allowed
and that's the big
esports.
one.
Which is particularly for gaming, right?
Yeah, Twitch is only for gaming. It came off of. Okay, I shouldn't say it's only for gaming because they just added creative and recently, which allows people who do like.
For
art,
applications
like
and-
art, music, cosplay. People who make stuff. Twitch is now an outlet for them as well. It's not as big yet. They kind of released it within an entire week of playing Bob Ross, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it does have a creative side. Really fast, I just want to finish. The
Yeah.
other 3 that are big is it's League of Legends, Dota 2, Counter-Strike Go, and Hearthstone.
Yeah, okay.
Those are the big 4 right now. They dominate the top of Twitch every day. There are more tournaments, more money in those 4 than any other sport right now. And I expect to see Overwatch in that to round that out in the top 5, probably in 6 months.
Yeah.
So-
And I mean, that's amazing to think it's only 6 months and not 6 years.
Oh yeah, no, it's.
So-
I mean, there's already a following. There's already people. I can't wait to. I would love to cast games for that because it's such a high stakes game and so high function and so rapid and chaotic and it's just fun.
Yeah.
And it looks like a Pixar movie and it's just better.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to transition now into a movie. I don't know if either one of you had a chance to watch the teaser trailer.
I did not personally.
Okay, no. Did you happen to, Aaron?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm talking about the new teaser trailer for the movie Inferno that's coming out in October. Robert Langdon, actually Tom Hanks, is reprising his role as Robert Langdon.
Mm-hmm.
This is his third or fourth movie in which this time he
I think it's the third.
He ends up.
This is the third. He was
This is the
third.
in.
Yeah.
His third role is Robert Langdon, and he reprises his role as the professor. And this time he wakes up in, I believe, Florence or Venice with no memory. And so basically what they're talking about Inferno is in the 7 levels of hell.
Nine.
I'm sorry, 9
Nine-
levels?
9 circles of hell.
9 circles of hell. And actually, you're right, Skylar.
It's based off Dante's Divine Comedy, Dante's
There you
Inferno.
go.
Dante's Inferno. Yeah.
Perfect.
Dante
And
Alighieri.
so it's only about 1:30, as I completely butchered that. And they
Yeah.
do that too.
I've actually read the Divine Comedies.
So,
It's the only reason I know.
But no, honesty. So this is a whole other adventure with this, and I've read the book twice. I loved it both times. I'm very interested to see. We've got Ron Howard coming back, and Brian Grazer is the executive producer. I'm very interested to see this. This is going to be one of those movies that's, it's going to be that adventure type, and
Cerebral adventure.
exactly.
Yeah.
If you like Angels and Demons, and you like the Da Vinci Code, I think you'll like this.
I think if you like Da Vinci Code, you're gonna like this one more than you liked Angels and Demons.
Right, I agree with that. But see, once again, they had it put in the chronologically. Angels and Demons came before the Da Vinci Code.
Yes.
Because otherwise, if that had happened, in the releases, it wouldn't have gotten the same gusto. But no, this one looks good. So I'm very curious to see that. And then tomorrow, we get our first Assassin's Creed trailer.
Yeah, we do.
So that's going to be.
I'm excited, and I'm also skeptical.
Yes.
Are you skeptical or are you worried?
Are you skeptical?
Do you want it to be good?
I want it to be good, and it's not a matter of worried. I'm skeptical whether or not it will be, because I like Assassin's Creed. It's always been a game series that, even though itself, Call of Duty, it has an every year release. Assassin's Creed has been able to maintain a level of not just consistency, because Call of Duty is consistent, but its gameplay gets boring after a while. Where Assassin's Creed has been able to change enough of the extremities of the game to be fun and still have a unique story that was engaging. And I feel that Assassin's Creed has consistently been a good game year after year, with some minor hiccups in Unity. And an Assassin's Creed movie has a lot of good backlore to pull off of, and I just hope that it does well.
Well, I think it will. I mean, what you were just talking about, the different storylines. We've had the one in 1776 with George Washington. We had Black Flag with the one with on the
John
ships.
Conway.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of different ones that we can,
Yeah, it's played throughout history.
The one thing I will be curious to see is how violent it's going to be, because that's going to be that being
I don't think there's going to be a lot of gore or anything. I think it's going to be violent, but I don't think it's going to be gratuitous.
I don't think it's going to be doom gory.
Yeah.
That's up there. But at the same time, I think players, including myself, we expect that level of violence to a certain extent. I mean, the guy stabbing him.
Well, I would say it's going to be.
Not just saying.
I'm going to say it's going to be a similar level of violence to Batman.
Right. Okay.
I'm going to say, so if they can do Batman violence well, like they did in Batman vs Superman, then fine, because Batman's fighting style then was very flowy.
Right.
He flowed through the battlefield, and that's what assassins fight like. They flow through the battlefield in the game. And so if they can handle that, and the trailer will show us whether or not they do. And that's one of the things that, so long as they don't give away too much of the plot, I'm fine with. Because there's a lot of subplot in Assassin's Creed, and there's a lot of different contexts, a lot of things. My biggest, and this is the reason why
it's a
I'm
storyline
skeptical.
then. Okay.
Yeah, the reason why I'm skeptical about the movie is not because I don't think it's going to be enjoyable, even though there's a lot of video game movies that aren't. It's that there's a lot of lore involved in Assassin's Creed, a lot of lore that deals with Adam and Eve and goes way back into history and stuff like that. Yeah, and my concern is being able to transition that into a movie where maybe people don't know about any of that stuff, and makes it harder for audiences to grasp.
Right. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop there. If you'd like to listen to all of our other podcasts, or he was talking about video, or because we did do one on video games, if you'd like to listen to our podcasts, you can go to www.facebook.com/CNE4COC. On SoundCloud, you can look at search my name, David, David Caduto, Caduto, and you'll be able to check out all of CNE's podcasts there. We're on Twitter with the same handle name, and okay, so that's about it.
Really fast. If anyone's interested in watching any of the esports, MSI does play on Twitch TV the 12th and the 13th and 14th at 10:30 p.m. The American game is on the 13th. They'll be playing against the Taiwanese Flash Wolves. So it'll be a good
Definitely
tournament.
post this up on the CNE webpage.
Yeah.
So you can check that out.
The other thing is, if anyone wants to get into it, ESPN on their esports page has an entire list of upcoming events. If you want to see stuff, so
absolutely. And I know TBS is doing a big thing at the end of the month. I think it's the 27th, and they're going to be having a whole esports show. So that's about it. I'm David Caduto.
I'm Aaron Lanuza.
And I'm Skylar Barty.
And you've been listening to a CNE podcast. Thanks, guys.